What do you think that was? So like East Greenbush.
Yeah. So, we stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to start with the budget presentation.
And I've just been asked to kind of give the highlights since last budget presentation. Over here. Okay. All right, so I think let's go to the fourth draft of the budget. At this point, we've gotten a lot of hard numbers. We'll see further on. We've had a lot of CSE meetings. Placements our kids are going to, so that's been incorporated here. So the budget to budget from current year to next year, we're looking at a $2.2 million increase, which is about 7.82%. Piece of that, you'll see that $1 million of that is actually debt service increase, which is being offset in the revenue. So it's kind of a skewed amount, but it is being offset $1 million of that with revenue on the revenue side. I think the big piece that we didn't have last meeting that we now have are those final health insurance premium increases, and you'll see that those are pretty huge increases. Our Highmark plan has a 15.3% increase. Our Caremark RX, which goes with that Highmark insurance plan, has a 6.6% increase, and then our CDPHP plan is at a 9.77% increase. So year to year, we're looking at about $700,000 increase just in health insurance. About 80% of our budget is people, salary and benefits. So this is a huge piece for us, and it's really not sustainable. And we're really trying as a district to look at other options in our health insurance consortium because obviously, double-digit increases is just not sustainable for our budget. So we've kind of gone through each meeting where these are the requested items. The red ones have been removed when we moved on to the second draft of the budget. So then at last meeting, we had removed those other items, and then we came back to last one. We added a few items back, and we're now at the budget we're at now. We've had some preliminary board discussion about some other items that we're looking to kind of trim down, not position-wise, and we're kind of finalizing that. Then just kind of looking back to show like where we've been. Come back. So over the last few years, just to give people like a sense, the budget didn't just grow overnight for no reason. These are some of the items that we've added to our general fund budget over the last several years. We've added a REACH teacher, we've added an additional elementary teacher, an elementary counselor, we've added additional 0.5 music, we've added a school resource officer, we've moved our athletic director to a full-time position, which is a stipend position before that. We've had several additional special ed positions due to IEP needs. We've increased our speech language pathologists. We've had hiring of teaching assistants, teacher aides. We of course split our combined O&M transportation supervisor positions into 2 separate positions after the retirement of that person who was in that position. And we've added an additional UPK classroom. So all these things obviously have significant money tied toward them. And we are where we are with our budget.
I think one thing to add to this, just as a reminder to everybody, this wasn't felt as impactful the last couple of years because most of this was paid for out of COVID funds, and now those items have moved back into the general fund. So, seeing that budget.
Again, just no change with state aid. The budget still has not been passed state, but we're hopeful that these numbers are kind of going to stay as they are.
Yeah, that is a really big point to me. the budget is supposed to be here on April 1st, we don't have it. So we're making some very large assumptions that the values that we've already got from the state don't decrease. So, really just hoping that that's.
We're pretty
the case.
confident about that.
We're hopeful.
Yeah, so our tax cap for next year, we're looking at a 3.55% tax cap, and that's an increase of about 535,000.
So just for the people in the audience, one of our challenges, and this is why it's been a difficult budget year, is that increase of that tax cap was completely eaten up by health insurance increases. So any other program expenses increases, that's where we're trying to basically rob Peter to pay Paul to preserve program.
So I guess this is really where we're at right now, where our current gap is between revenue and expenditures. So right now we're at that 1.4 rate, with some board discussion that we had during audit and finance. We're now at a 1.346 gap, and what really the decision that needs to be made is, are we going to go over the cap? Are we going to allocate fund balance toward this to close the gap? Are we going to make some cuts or decreases to some items in our budget? Combination of those. So that's really where we're at to budget right now, and it will need to be approved at our April 22nd.
Just a note on April 22nd, that's a Tuesday. Everybody in New York State has to meet on a Tuesday because that's when you have to adopt the BOCES budget. So it's just a change from when we normally have our Thursday meetings.
So that brings us to approval of the minutes. Motion to approve the minutes for last meeting. Danielle, Dina, all in favor? Motion carries. That brings us to update from administrators and superintendent.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time today during a budget process. It's one of the hardest things board members have to do because the program is really terrific here. You want to maintain all those things, and when the revenues don't meet the costs, some difficult decisions have to be made. So I appreciate your candor and your thoughtful dialogue about this all. Here's some pretty interesting things happened this week. You may have saw on social media, we received the Titanium Award from our insurance carrier, Utica National. Basically, that says that we've done a series of things at a very high level to maintain the highest standards and safety with regards to our facilities, training, and things like that. So I'm thankful to our staff for being able to do that. I think it comes with a $500 award. Yeah, I mean, they may have taken that away too. They raised our rate 28% this year too, which is thoughtful, even though we won the Titanium Award, and like massively increased the deductibles. So it's a little ironic. Also on a good note, we have a bid opening for a part of our project, and the numbers came in fairly favorably. We had some really deep concerns that they were going to go much higher than the initial costing, just due to uncertainty in the market and actually the timing of the bid. But it opened up fairly favorably. This is only one portion of our project. And right now, our construction manager, which is Schoolhouse, and our architects, which is SEI, are doing some post-bid opening calls out to the people that won those bids, just to make sure they had a full understanding of what they bid upon, and to know that, these are some of the ways that you work in a school, which is sometimes different than the other work that they do. But we were really pleased about that. It was a great concern of ours, just because we were really unsure because of how long it took for the project to be approved. There's still some other components of the project that have not been approved yet, and I've been on the line this week, and so is Stephanie with DEC. DEC has put some interesting caveats to previously discussed items. As you know, we have what I affectionately call the swamp out back. And that's area that we can't use. It's wet. There's a myriad of other things, but they wanted us to actually change the deeding of the swamped area, which is a real big problem, because by changing the deeding, that would actually derail our project, cost a ton of money. It would be off by at least a year. And it really, they don't actually ask schools to do that. So my thinking, and what I told DEC, if you're worried about a project in the future, disapprove it then, deny it then. We're not asking to do anything. We're actually looking to replace same with same, meaning the footprint of our project is actually the same. They did make us put in right now, this is my understanding, they did make us put in new fencing and they required additional shrubbery and trees, which is an expense that we weren't planning for. And actually our landscape architects don't even believe that actually is gonna make a difference, but that's what DEC is requiring, and certainly we're gonna be compliant with that. And we need to have that, because if they don't approve it, then there's no project. So that's what we've been working on this week. You may have remembered several months ago, we had several requests about DOT doing a study outside of school and the lights. Remember I was talking about that? I've gone back and forth with DOT for a while, and they said, we'll get back to you at the end of the summer. They didn't get back to us at the end of the summer, but I actually did finally hear from them. And basically I had to engage with the town of Brunswick to see if the town of Brunswick was agreeable to change the speed limit outside of the school district. So that would be from like the corner of Stewart's just to like the Tipperary. Right now it's 35. Most school zones are 20 miles per hour. And as far as I know, the town is agreeable. So I wrote a letter that I'm asking the town supervisor from Brunswick to actually send to DOT in support of that. So hopefully there can be some movement. My suspicion is it's not going to happen anytime soon. I think those things work very, very slow, but this is the first time we've actually made some kind of movement. For many years. Every once in a while, they ask, can we have lights? Can we have speed? Like, is there something? And normally the answer is no. So I was actually heartened to see that there was some level, and the town has been great to work with. So hopefully there's more to come with that. And recently I've had several regionalization meetings. You may remember earlier this year, school districts in New York State were asked to provide a series of information and narratives about ways that you might be able to share resources and just enhance things like the budget that we're talking about. So today was yet another meeting of regionalization. And we are working to collaborate, particularly on transportation. That's one of our big expenses and it's one of our biggest challenges. And I'm sure taxpayers don't love to see a bus with one child on it. And usually those are outside placements or private placements that we're required to transport kids. And I think it was 15 miles that we have to transport our request. The request had to be done by April 1st. So we know what requests for private, we know what requests for charter schools, and we're still working on special education, those outside placements, but we know where they are. Stephanie and I are hopeful that we only have to contract one run right now. We're still trying to see if there's a way that we can either consolidate or find a partner to help us with that. Anytime we have to contract out an outside run, it's very expensive. So we're hoping to have internally capacity. I do think we're fortunate some districts contract out a lot of runs. So the fact that we only have to do one is good, but we're certainly looking at ideas about having like a bus roundup, a recruitment fair. We train people, so that's something that we're actively working with.
And those small runs be done by the Suburban that we had?
Yes. Yes and no. So ultimately you can be an itinerant driver, but you can only do it like 5 times. So it wouldn't be a long-term sustainable thing. We can contract with parents though. And sometimes in very unique circumstances, we would write a contract and actually the district will pay it. It's the IRS race to a parent to go to a particular location. So we've had some success with that before. There's some things that are just a little bit harder to do, like all schools start at the same time. So if you have 2 private schools that start at the same time, but they're not close to each other, you can't consolidate those runs. So that's a little bit frustrating. Some other things are, Suburban, I can't remember. Consolidating runs. I'm sure it was good. I'll think that in a little bit. But anyway, long story short, it's something that we continually look to find efficiencies there. It would be great if we had found another driver or 2. I think that'd be wonderful. We have the fleet for it. We just don't have the drivers to actually run those type of things. But we're hopeful. We're hopeful for sure. So that's it for me. I'll turn it over to Mrs. Honorado.
Sure. Good evening.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Good evening. Last week, actually, Mr. Rizzo and I had the great fortune to be invited to student capstone presentations for our New Visions Pathways in Education program. Emmy Martin and Isabella DiLorenzo presented on Emmy's group project with students from other districts. It was on a collaboration closet.
And Isabella's presentation was on health and wellness and like a wellness day project for elementary teachers. We're beyond impressed with the level of professionalism and thought that went into these presentations. And actually, it's something that I've taken back to our counseling center team to just consider incorporating into our planning moving forward. So congratulations to them on successful projects. And I feel very thankful that we were invited to be present when they presented. We had some really fun field trips, lots of field trips this year, and assemblies. One that's near and dear to our heart is the Jared Campbell assembly. He came this year. Christy Coons helped coordinate this. She's our middle school music teacher through Arts and Education Funding for all pre-K through grade 12 students. Jared had an assembly. So he infuses our character ed themes into really fun and engaging content and songs, and our students really loved being a part of that. We have state testing coming up next week. In the elementary school, we'll be starting ELA testing on the 8th and 9th, so we're in preparations for that. A letter was sent to families on that this week, just so everyone can be prepared. And we actually have an exciting donation in the works, possibly. Chris Zakarewski is working on a project to donate a free little library and bench to be located in our playground area as a part of this Eagle Scout project. So hopefully more to come for you on that.
Mr. Rizzo?
Good evening. So I wanted to talk about an update. Place from last meeting. Mr. Schufan actually is here tonight. He asked two questions. One was about transcripts. I was able to follow up on our transcripts from the ELA Regents exam, and we need to get something corrected with Mr. Goss and our counselors. We're able to get those corrected. So I'm happy to announce that students should have their Regents scores on the transcripts now. So if you pass that along to Schufan or shoot an email. Also, he had asked a question about ELA results, which I want to share with the board as well. So for January, our ELA results, 81 students took the exam in January, and we had 13 students who failed the exam. I'm putting an asterisk next to that for a second. So 13 students failed of 81. 30 students received mastery, which is an 85 or better on the exam. So the reason why I put an asterisk next to the 13 failures is, please remember that this is a mid-year exam. The students have not completed the 11th grade curriculum yet. They're taking the exam for the first time, and typically they'll take it in June. So they're taking it really on an advanced track pathway because they're able to with that curriculum. So those students who didn't do well and failed, or those who want to improve their score will take it again in June. So I would say the results this year aren't quite as strong as last year, but still very strong considering the fact that it's halfway through the year. And he had asked that question. I think he was, said, I don't need to follow up on it, but I felt like it was something important to share with the board as well. And we'll be administering on June 11th the new geometry exams, our first Regents exam coming up in June. So we're getting ready to gear up for exams. Academic eligibility, Ryan, I was looking at you with that. Just a quick, we're midway through the third quarter. And I would say the midway point of the quarters is never a great place to highlight. Students tend to pick it up for the end of the quarter, if that makes sense. So I'm going to say this, I'm going to save some data for you to the end of the quarter. But I'll say right now that I'm happy to tell you that no students have missed any contests at this point. We're able to work around all the tryouts that occurred. The students were able to try out for spring sports. Right? So that's a good thing. And I'll come back with some better data for you when I have it end of the quarter. But still back in my mind in terms of monitoring that as well. I want to recognize the PTSA, give a kudos. Still a little sore from Ryan covering me, recovering, but that was a great event for a community. An awesome turnout, faculty, staff, and just the community. It was bittersweet for me personally to kind of see that and just think about things for myself. But I really enjoyed being out there, and I know watching all of the kids who are on the court and little ones out there, Kelly's kids in elementary school, and just a great turnout. My own boys were there too, and just kind of jumped in. It was just fun. So hopefully they'll continue that in the future as well. That PTSA Harlem Wizards basketball game. Those guys are tall. That's all I'll say. I'm not kidding. Ryan was rough, but 3 through 8 assessments. Turned it up in the third quarter. I like it. 3 through 8 assessments. Kelly mentioned this as well. We are beginning here in secondary school middle school next week, ELA testing on Monday and Tuesday, math coming right after the break, and then we have science 8. We also got hit with field testing again this year, so we're going to have U.S. history, ELA, and physics as well this year, and then we have to gear up for Regents exams. So there's a lot of tests, planning, and preparation that goes into coordinating all those assessments that take place in our building each year. So we're in the middle of that right now. Master scheduling is also occurring right now, and we are redoing the high school master schedule, moving along. And right now we have some new programming next year. We're trying to accommodate for special education to meet the needs of our students as they're progressing through. And we also are looking at language as we're in the final year of the French phase out next year. French 4-5 is what remains next year, to make sure that we can fit that in the schedule with our FTE. And we're also next year, remember the Russian phase out began very quickly this year. So next year we have Russian 3 to offer as well. So we had to really build around some of those pieces in the master schedule. So we have a team in place with counselors. There's several teachers on it as well. It's really a collaborative effort. Angelina was in my office the other day. She saw that my office was overtaken by people in there. It's really an open space. Everyone works in there collaboratively and works in administration. So it's a nice process that we've built. When I first started here, it was really myself and my AP in the office and no one else, which is not what we wanted. And now we've got a much more collaborative effort, which is great. And the union is very supportive, I think, as well, in terms of what we come up with each year, working with them as well. So we appreciate that. The last thing I want to mention is just a challenge with the board. Something I just wanted to explain further. There was a request to move our high school awards program. So I just want to just share with you in terms of what the challenges are with that, because everything we do is for students, and we plan around students first and foremost. So I want everyone to just reinforce that. The end of the year, we have a lot of programs, and kids are so involved here. It's a challenge to program things sometimes, especially with community members coming in. We have to know weeks in advance. We don't have the sectional schedules. And so we're up against the last 2-3 weeks of the year. We have Regents exams will start June 11th. We have like a 2 or 3 week window where within that window, end of May, beginning of June, we have the high school awards night program, which we have to schedule. We have Regents exams begin on the 11th. We have a 6-12 band concert with a 6-12 chorus concert. We have a junior senior prom. We have a national honor society ceremony and a senior trip. And then we have a high school awards ceremony to fit in there with all the adults as well who need to be part of it. And the high school awards ceremony is largely planned by our counselors who want to be present for that ceremony. So we did move the event this year, but I'm going to caution everyone that we moved it to another day that is when there could be sectional events for another group of kids who are lacrosse players. So we don't know how that'll play out. So we don't have these dates when we have to schedule this in advance, and there's not a lot of time there to schedule it. So we do the best we can to schedule around dates that we believe will, have the least amount of impact, but likely we're moving on to some other students now who may be impacted by the new date. And now some of our counselors can't attend on the new date because there's also adults who have schedules who want to be there. So I just want to present the challenges, but sometimes you see a date and say, well, these kids can't go. We look at those things, we do the best we can because, again, all those things happen in a 2 to 3 week window and with sectionals happening as well. So I'm hopeful that those kids won't be impacted with lacrosse sectionals, but I want you to know if it does happen, that why it happens is that there's just so much happening, so many events that are happening after school hours for kids. They're great things, but it's a challenge for us. So I just want you to know we are sensitive to it. We do our very best. And I'm always happy to answer any questions if people have them in terms of why, because on face value, it may look like we're not thinking about these things, and we do miss things, but we are trying our very best, and our team is as well, the counselors. So I just wanted to say thank you for your support with that as well and understanding. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rachel. Thank you.
So this has been kind of a bittersweet week in special education because we are welcoming our intern, Rocky Persico, as our intern for special education. And we are saying goodbye and thank you to Jody Goosebear for moving on to another opportunity. This is one of the most challenging times of year for a transition because we're only about halfway through our annual review timeframes. We've only met on about half of our special education students. So we're continuing to have those meetings, continuing to finalize programming for next year. Jody and Rocky have been able to spend some good time together the past couple days to really get Rocky caught up to speed. So we'll be ready to jump in when we return from spring break. And as Angelina had mentioned, special ed is full of a lot of ups and downs. We're definitely seeing that one student moving in can rock a whole budget, and that's definitely something to consider. And there's some definite high areas of need. So we're continuing to hold our meetings. We're working with the scheduling committee, as Ken had mentioned, to kind of build in some programming for students in special education through the high school, and specify our student programming to the best of our abilities to meet the maximum student need that we can. So that's where special ed is at the moment. I did want to take a little side note to just say a thank you to the board and to Angelina, to Ken and to Bree, and particularly Kelly and Jody, as I'll be finishing up my internship hours this month. And the overwhelming amount of support from you all for letting me present every month, to Kelly, who's dedicated numerous hours of venting, projects, discussion, learning, to Angelina, who's come in recently and been saying like, yep, we're ready to ask you any questions. I am so grateful for all the opportunities. So thank you all for letting me jump in on this. One of the strongest parts of this district is the staff. I think that's one of the things that we see as we talk about the budget. Yeah, that's a huge portion of our budget is the staff, but they are excellent. And out of many districts that I've been in, they truly are one of the best. So well done to the board as you select your candidates, because they truly are incredible and we're very lucky to have them. So thank you to all of you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I don't sound great, sorry. Spring sports are underway and a couple of games are tomorrow, boys lacrosse and softball, I believe. So that's exciting. Greece was a big hit. I know a lot of you came out. It was sold out both nights and there were 16 seniors. So it was nice to see a lot of us being involved. The senior class has a couple fundraisers going on, a car wash on April 26th and a Chipotle fundraiser on April 28th. The Harlem Wizards game was a good turnout. I unfortunately couldn't make it, but I saw pictures and it looked like it was a lot of fun. And lastly, I would just like to say thank you to Dr. Modi and the administration for the support on Purple Day. As a person with epilepsy, I really appreciated it. So thank you.
I was in my office all day, but I did have a purple.
I promise you.
All right, so that brings us to committee and liaison updates. I guess just to update everyone who came out tonight, we did spend about an hour and a half or 2 hours in an audit and finance meeting, and made as many cuts as we think are possible, and we're left with a decision on whether to spend $1.3 million of the money that we have in a reserve, or to spend some of that and raise the tax. So that's kind of where we left off when we started, and I think it's just something we're going to have to think about and figure out before the next meeting. Does anyone have anything else? No.
I mean, I think just to build on what Rachel said, the priority for us is staff. So we want to make sure that, the staff are, continue to have their jobs and that essential programs aren't cut. The unfortunate news is Stephanie and Angeline and everyone else do a really good job managing the district, which means there's not a lot of extras that we can find to cut. So it's pencil sharpening, but I think our priority remains, as mentioned, the wonderful faculty, administration that keep this place what it is. So just want to share that perspective as far as our priorities go.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay. So that brings us to item 6.2. We should have put that on the table. I'm sorry, Dina and Tammy. So this would be a resolution to decrease the size of the board from 9 members to 7. Something I think we as a board have to vote on whether or not we want to put that out to the public for a vote. If we go to different school districts have different numbers between, some schools have only 5, some schools have as many as 9. 7 seems an optimal number. But certainly there's, advantages to having more people on the board. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on it. a quorum would still be 5. So, so if 2 people were absent, that would be okay. If a third person was absent, you wouldn't be able to meet as a board.
I mean, I know we discussed. I was just gonna say, I know we've discussed in the past, and we've had going on 6 years here, that over the years, we've discussed going down to 7, several occasions, so this is, might be new to some of you, but it's been an ongoing discussion. So I'm not opposed to it, but I don't know if it has any suggestions or opinions.
I mean, I'll just say, as the new person, I did kind of do my own research and shared with the board of, what's the ideal board size for a school district. And to Jack's point, it can be 5, it can be as large as 9. I mean, basically it has to do with the size of your district. We're not enormous, you can tell. So 7 seemed like kind of almost like the recommended size for a district of our, size. So again, from that perspective, I would support it as well.
Okay. So, again, we would pass the resolution tonight and it would go on the ballot. And then, with the budget vote, the public would decide whether to do that. So all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to special ed 7.1. Tammy? Danielle? All in favor? Motion carries. So that brings us to 8.1 through 8.6 on consent. Ryan, Ina, any discussion?
No, but can I ask the board just to hold on 8.5? I just have to do a little bit more research. It might be a naming issue with the club. There's no issue with it, but I just want to make sure I get it right. So just hold on 8.5.
Okay, so if we could have a motion to do 8.1 through 8.4 and 8.6. Motion carries, and we'll table 8.5.
If I could just also add, I just want to thank Ken and wish you the best of luck. You're going to lose your hair at your next job. For those of you don't know, Ken's been named he'll be my colleague as superintendent of Berlin Central School District. So he went part of the superintendent development program, and he'll be joining them on July 1st. So I wish you the best, and it'll be interesting to work with him. Actually, we're collaborating with Berlin, as we think, on some summer school stuff, so that I'll actually be right off the rip. So I congratulate you and wish you the best. And also Jody Hoosbear, as Rachel Community announced, she's moving on for a different professional opportunity, and we wish her nothing but the best. I also feel very fortunate. We were actually able to find an interim director of special education. He'll be working with us 30 days between now and the remainder of the year, mostly chairing meetings, which is great. I'll be able to pick up some of the pieces, some of the student issues and parent issues, but there's some real legal things that have to occur by the chair, and I cannot do that. So I was very nervous, but we were able to find someone that was happy to come to our district. And as Rachel mentioned, the collaboration's been great, and I'm not worried about him handling that piece, which will be really great. So we feel really fortunate. You can look on any job site. Every place is looking for special education teachers. Every place is looking for directors, CSE chairs, etc. This is a real huge vacancy. So I know Kelly had mentioned earlier there's an education expo where 2 of our students participated in the admissions program for future educators. I think programs like that are really huge because we have to backfill some of these positions. We currently have 2 vacancies for special education for next year, and it is a huge concern of mine that we'll be able to find an appropriately certificated person to work in that, and that's some of our most vulnerable population. So, we'll actively recruit. We've been really fortunate that some people have moved from bigger districts that want to come to our district in the last couple of years, and we'll continue that recruitment. But the area of special education is very vulnerable, so we're accepting applications.
So that brings us to 9.1 through 9.5 on consent. Danielle, Tammy, any discussion?
No, I just want to mention to the board and to people that are watching today's meeting, every single month we have a series of financial reports that are there. Internal claims fund, extracurricular report, budget transfer. you can keep an eye on the budget all year long by seeing how it's going. You can see if the expenses are outpacing the revenues, if there's been any unusual change. We have our internal claims auditor. He makes sure that everything that we're spending, whether it's buying a pencil to buying a vehicle, is following the rules. It's the best case scenario. We're buying the best value, little things like that, making sure there's the appropriate bids and things. So I mention that because not only is that posted for the board, but that's posted for the public too. And if anybody ever needs any help figuring out what they're looking at, please don't hesitate to call, because not everybody works in governmental accounting. It's sometimes they're a little thick to understand, but we're happy to go through any of these things because we recognize, money's tight. We keep an eye on every penny, but I'm sure you do as well.
Motion to approve? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. So that brings us to public comment.
I was just gonna.
Stand up, Jack. Caleb, can you give Jack the microphone? Jack went to the States for track this year. I expected you to get up a little faster than that.
That's actually related to what I was going to talk about. My coach had an idea for an extra jumping pit in the track, if it's possible to add in the track budget. It could add to smoothness and meets, which adds to possible invitations, because what happens is long jump and triple jump takes so long with one pit because then they have to do girls and boys, and then they have to do not only long jump girls and boys, but triple jump boys and girls, and that's what takes the longest at meets because everything else runs smooth. So if you guys took into consideration another possible jumping pit, it could add smoothness to meets and could make maybe invitations, which means more home meets, because this year we only have one home meet, which isn't a big deal, but like it would be nicer to see, because there's so many nice tracks around us. If there's more at Tamarack, then it would be greater for my teammates that are growing up. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe if you host an invitation, then other schools have to pay to enter, which means then you could get revenue from it, so it could pay off in the end. That's all I'd say.
I actually have an answer to that. So what we did in development of the track and all the outdoor activities, we asked the coaches for the recommendation, and your track coach did put that in as a recommendation. When the architects and all the people that designed our track based on the footprint we had, unfortunately, there wasn't enough room based on the shape of the track, but they did try to do it because that was a priority. So it wasn't for lack of just spending the money to do it. There literally just wasn't enough space. One of the reasons there's not enough space is because we have got wetland that we can't expand our stuff out to. So we absolutely looked into it multiple times. They tried to reconfigure things and all sorts of drawings, but the idea was great and we wished we could have done it. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Hello. So I do a lot of media stuff for Tamarack. I did something for the Polar Plunge, and I did that. I helped the budget. Folks trying to get that approved. I'm in a lot of media classes too, and a lot of those kids have the same interests as me, and all that stuff. But I'm super lucky because my parents blessed me with a really nice computer at home, and I could do all that work that way. At the school, a lot of the time when we try to get like video work done or try to make media, I guess, a lot of the stuff is blocked, and that's of course for school safety. But I'm just curious, excuse me, has there been any thought of an exception to those kinds of students who need to access those kinds of websites to do schoolwork? Because there have been periods where we're not able to do anything. We're trying to contact the IT department to get approval to something, and then we get it, but then not that it's their fault, but stuff keeps getting blocked. It's
I have an answer to that one too. For July 1, or at least for the next school year, as long as this budget is fine and there's no major issues and everything passes, we're getting Aristotle K-12, which is a new filtering system, which will allow the classroom teacher to have control over all the sites. So you won't have to go to IT anymore. And I do have to shout out, Gavin did the video that was such a hit last year with the capital project and the budget. So we didn't actually formally thank you, but I want to formally thank you.
Thank you.
And that was the goalie that was in the video, complaining about the hole in front of the crossing.
Hi, I'm Logan. I am an athlete in 2 sports here at Tamarack, and I also
support a lot of my athletic teams. Like all my friends are on a lot of teams, and going to a lot of these sporting events, I see a lot of injuries like concussions, muscle tears, sprains, stuff like that. And I've noticed that a lot of times we're severely unprepared for these. Like there's been a concussion waiting upwards of 45 minutes for an ambulance to get there, and we have very few people trained to help with these injuries. Like it usually ends up being parents and coaches. I would just like to know if there's any talks of getting an athletic trainer so injuries on or at sporting events and in school are more or better dealt with.
I can kind of answer that one. Twofold with the athletic trainer piece. One, there's a shortage, actually, believe it or not. There's not a lot of athletic trainers available. But unfortunately, we don't have a line item for athletic trainers in our budget. However, we have worked with the town and our local Eagle Mills in Center Brunswick, and they're going to be responding to injuries that occur here. Right now, previously they only responded to what was considered Charlie, Delta, or Echo calls. And now they're going to run Bravos for us, which means some of the lower level injuries, you're going to have an EMT from one of those stations come, and that'll help escalate the ambulance. Because what Logan is referring to, there was an injury of a basketball player, and I think it took about 45 minutes for an ambulance to come. And that was very concerning to everyone. And she got treatment, but really she needed a higher level of care because they weren't sure if there was a neck or head injury. So that's what they're referring to. So certainly always on the radar. And we always look, I always speak with Mr. Miner about having our coaches always have additional training. So like we do have access to an athletic trainer to like train them on, just new techniques and things like that. Does that help?
Yeah. Thank you.
Mark?
Good evening. Mark Balistreri, Jack Kern and myself came a few months ago and talked about the volunteer fire and EMS tax exemption. We had some questions. In fact, a board member or two called and had some questions. So we wanted to come back and provide information to you folks regarding that. And if I have some packets I could pass out. I'm going to use this podium so I can set my phone. I have 8 of them. I don't know if that's enough. I apologize. Okay. I'm not going to take a lot of your time. I know how public comment periods go. But I just want to run through the packet quick so everybody understands what's in here. The first is the law itself that New York State passed in 2022. There's also a letter from the county executive to the town assessors in the different towns. The town of Brunswick did a local law and passed it as a tax exemption for firefighters and EMS personnel in the town. And there's a copy of the local law filing with that. I provided a copy of the resolution that Able Park School District passed back in 2023 of November. And then there's also an email, which I would ask that the board keep to themselves and not pass out, from our assessor that explains, which I don't completely understand, but she's an assessor, she understands it, and it explains how it works and how she came to the numbers that she has in the email for the different school districts. And then I also provided I went back and contacted all the volunteer fire companies and provided you the last page there has the school districts and the total number of members for those fire that are in those school districts that belong to fire companies. I did not provide EMS. I believe there's only 2 ambulance agencies that probably fall within Brittenkill. I would imagine Kraft and Pittstown. So it would not be a large number of
It
people.
might be Hoosick Valley too, because we do have parts of Scottico.
Okay. So those 3 agencies, I would be surprised if it's more than a handful in addition to what we have here. As you can see, it's 30 for Brittenkill, which, as you can imagine, is a very small number for the school district. And I'm not prepared to talk about your budget, but I'm sure that you realize 30 people is a very small number for this exemption. So, and then lastly, I provided a copy of the form. I spoke to the town assessor today just to verify the process. If the board's inclined to pass a resolution to allow for this exemption, a copy of the resolution would just go to the town, and then whoever wanted to apply for it would just apply to the town. The school would not have anything to do with any of it. It would just go through the assessor's office, and they would take care of both the town and the school district exemptions. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jack's here. Do you want to say anything, Jack?
And we discussed a little bit about the lack of response from volunteers. You are covered totally by volunteer organizations, almost anywhere you go in this town. And this is part of a recruitment and retention program. That's the biggest thing, to try to draw people in, adults, maybe they have property owners that will participate in the community with, first responder. That's our primary goal. And the people that we have is myself, we're getting older. How much longer can we stay into it? A little bit of an incentive. I get a tax break. I'm likely to stay a few more years longer. And that's what this whole program is about, recruitment and retention. So we hope to certainly consider it. Thank you. That's it. All right, can we have a motion to move into executive session for personnel matter? Valerie, Jenna, all in favor? Okay, see you all later. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. If I can- That's a lot.
Drive by. It's a, microphone, yeah.